Good afternoon. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Good afternoon, Mr. Taylor. Ms. Herbert.
Here.
Dr. Bustles, Mr. Brennan,
Here.
Mr. McDowell,
Yes.
Mr. Duval,
Present.
Mayor Rickaman.
Here.
Thank you.
Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reverend McDowell, would you share a word of prayer before we begin this meeting, sir?
Sure. Let us bow our heads. Creator God, for all that you've done for us, for the blessings of this day, for strength and empowerment during this hour. We ask that you might bless each one of us individually and collectively. Allow us to sense your presence as we gather in this room. Allow your anointing to fall afresh upon us, so that the conversations we have, the decisions we make, that they are rooted and grounded in your grace. We ask it in your name. Amen.
Amen. We have a motion to adopt the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt the agenda with two amendments. One, to add item 40, discussion of negotiations to propose contractual arrangements pursuant to SC Code 30-4-70A2. And on item 9, to add an additional sentence that says the renewal cost is split equally with Richland County. The city's portion is $140,695.72.
Is there a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Further questions, comments? Hearing none, seeing none. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Taylor. Aye. Ms. Herbert.
Aye.
Dr. Bustles.
Aye.
Mr. Brennan. Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman.
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman, this is minor, quick clarification for the executive session item. The addition is to item 42 rather than item 40. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
2, excuse me.
At this point, Mayor, if there's any public input on the agenda items as outlined, we can take input at this time.
Mayor, we don't have anyone signed up to speak at this time.
Okay. And then we'll have the public hearing part,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At this time, we will ask for approval of the minutes. Item number 1, Council is asked to approve the November 15, 2022 council meeting minutes.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, seeing none. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Mr. Taylor. Ms. Herbert.
Aye.
Dr. Bustles.
Aye.
Mr. Brennan.
Yes.
Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman.
Aye.
Thank you.
Our next item is an honorary street naming resolution. Item number 2, resolution number R 2022-099, approving the honorary naming of the intersection of Blanding Street and Assembly Street, Judge L. Casey Manning Court.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussions, questions?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Should we make the speed limit there the same as his jersey number at USA? Just kidding.
I've never had that request before. I mean, that would be an interesting,
Well, I always thought the speed limit on George Rogers Boulevard should be 38 miles an hour. That's,
what was Casey's number?
Can't remember.
I got 44 in the back of my mind. For some
I had 2 on my.
I should know that.
You should.
Former law clerk is supposed to know the answers of everything about him.
I only know legal stuff.
We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan? Yes. Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thanks.
Presentations, item number 3, the Cooperative Ministry 40th Anniversary Proclamation, the Honorable Daniel J. Rickaman, Mayor.
Well, it gives me great pleasure. I had the opportunity to be there for the 40th anniversary celebration of the Cooperative Ministries, who's been intricate part of our city and providing service, and it gives me great pleasure that we have an opportunity to honor their anniversary here today with a proclamation, and I'd like the opportunity to read that. Whereas the City of Columbia recognizes that nonprofits give shape to a community's boldest dreams, highest ideals, and noblest causes, and feed, heal, shelter, educate, inspire, enlighten, and nurture people of every age, gender, race, socioeconomic status. Whereas the Cooperative Ministry was formed in 1982 by 5 downtown churches to establish a cooperative method of ministering assistance to the needy, with the first services being provided Monday, September 20th, 1982. The Cooperative Ministries has expanded its mission to increase the economic self-sufficiency of people experiencing poverty in the Midlands through crisis assistance and sustainability programs. Cooperative Ministry completes its mission by providing financial assistance and empowerment services, free clothing for work and school, emergency food, career improvement assistance, free income tax preparation services, insurance counseling, and budget counseling. The City of Columbia applauds the Cooperative Ministry for debt-free status, and that 90% of all expenses support program services. Whereas the City of Columbia celebrates the work of the Cooperative Ministries, local board of directors, staff, and volunteering, including the leadership of Beth Irick, the Chief Executive Officer. So therefore, I, Daniel J. Rickaman, the Mayor of the City of Columbia, City Council, along with my fellow members of Columbia City Council, do hereby celebrate with this proclamation the 40th anniversary of Cooperative Ministries.
Thank you, Mayor Rickaman, and thank you, City Council, for recognizing the Cooperative Ministry's 40 years of service to the Midlands and the Greater Columbia area. And it is a true honor to be here and to accept this resolution on behalf of our Board of Directors, our partnering faith-based organizations in the Midlands, our donors, our clients, our staff, and all of those who support the ministry. Thank you so much.
Thank you for what y'all do. We really appreciate it as a city, all 39,422 of us. And I know y'all have a lot to do, so don't feel obligated to hang out.
That's it.
Our next presentation, Mayor and Council, is the City Beautification Project Update. It's really meant to be a comprehensive update led by Mr. Robert Anderson, Public Works Director, but also with one of our community partners, Mr. James Bennett, Midlands Business Leadership Group. And this has been a long time in coming for that second part of the presentation, so we're glad that James, I think, and Mr. Lee Bustles is here as well. Robert?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, City Manager. We've been working quite a bit. I'm going to give just a quick overview of the Public Works side of what we've been doing, and then, of course, make some introductions. So we've went through some of this. I'm going to be very brief on this. You know, we've got some current practices that we've been doing in Public Works for many years, and that's a 14-day mowing cycle, mulching beds, planting our yearly annuals, but doing a lot of conversion from annuals to perennials, shrub trimming, edging crews that the city manager graciously put out a couple of years ago, especially on main thoroughfares, so they all look, you know, somewhat routine. Everybody don't mow their yard at the same time. Tree removals after healthcare, and curb painting, which we would get through. We have got one crew that does this, and notifications of right-of-way maintenance. So what we do now is when we go out and maintain a right-of-way, we generally send a letter or a note to the homeowner, making it notified of them that there's their responsibility to actually maintain that. So future projects that we've got coming online, some of these we've got some good news about. North Main is getting ready to be completed, I believe. So we will have the stretch between Anthony and Columbia College. Elmwood, we recently did a project for a safety project, but we replanted a bunch of low-growing plants on Elmwood that we will be maintaining on a regular basis. We have Green Street and the Green Street Bridge. I put that in my presentation. Later, I have a comment about that. We are actually not going to maintain the Green Street Bridge. Ms. Gentry and I believe some others here worked out a deal that USC is going to maintain the Green Street Bridge, the Green Street Corridor, Lincoln Street from Senate Street to Blossom Street. So that will be on their plate, not on ours, which we're looking forward to. We will watch it very closely and make sure it's maintained. We've got South Main that will come on board. 5 Points, we hear may kick off next year. And of course, the Assembly Street project. Forestry Division has been working on some initiatives, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at, we've grown so much in the last 15 or 20 years that we're going to look at contracting some of the mowing out on the interstates, Harbison possibly, I-126, Garner's Ferry, and I-277. We're going to try to maintain them a little bit sooner so the dandelions don't grow as quick with contractors. Then we're going to refocus our city crews, and we're going to refocus them on several projects that I'll talk about in a few minutes. Of course, we've got our partnership I mentioned just a second ago with USC. They're going to do Green and Lincoln. We are going to work with the City Center Partnership. We're going to look at our local garden clubs and let them help design some of our projects. Project I looked at the other day and just reviewed with Kelvin and a couple others is the City Hall 1800 Main Street, where the plants were over at 1800 Main. We're going to concrete the top of that, and we're going to go in with a section of planters, both tall and small, keep the plants small for safety, but actually give that some color, hopefully tie into the City Hall out front here with some more pots and stuff. And we will change those to seasonal flowers throughout the year. So hope to change them out several times and get some good color going on. So there's a couple other things that go along with this, and I've got tree removal, 1500 Main Street. So we were notified by a partner of ours, Soda City, the other day, about a month ago, and in front of Cowboys, if you're sitting there looking at Cowboys on the right-hand side of Cowboys, there's a tree that needs to be removed. The tree is completely dead. I believe Sarah has looked at it, and so has one of our other arborists. We have a contractor scheduled to come in this Sunday. We've already talked to City Center Partnership. We'll be doing a little bit more publicity on it, but the tree will need to be taken out with a crane. So that is part of unfortunately, a beautification project, is once we get it out, we've got to get the stump ground and got to get a tree back into the location. So as we have aging tree canopies, this is things we do not want to happen. But like I said, we'll make sure the communication's there and a notification process. We've already talked to City Center Partnership. Employee introduction. Caleb left us a few months ago to go live in Missouri and work for one of our arch rivals, which is a utility company, and now he's telling everybody how he wants to trim trees off the power lines. But in that, we found our new floristry and beautification superintendent, Brian Niger. Brian came to us. Brian came to us from one of the private tree companies in town. He's really come in with I guess a wide approach of looking. It's easy to do trees, as I told Brian. It's completely different to look at the beautification side of thing, and he's really come up with some good plans that we're looking at. One of the things we've done recently is the SCDOT city collaboration. We met several times with the mayor and the highway commissioner and some others with DOT, Clint, about medians and about the condition of our medians. We did a pilot project with them. They cleaned the medians on Gervais and Hugie Street, and then we went back in and we painted Gervais Street, and that's where we stopped right now until we figure out what we're going to do. I know somebody might be smiling, but we heard we were putting mustard all over the place, so. So we're going back to the drawing board to see how this will work. I think on Hugie Street, we're actually going to go back in with a 4-inch stripe around it. I don't think our crews have got to that yet, Councilman. So we're actually looking at the business corridor challenge. We don't know how that would work. And one of the presentations, I'd actually seen it once, Councilman Taylor actually brought it in, is the pilot program that we reached out to code enforcement. And thinking about that pilot project and the potential beautification project it has and the impacts it could have all over the city. And to give a quick brief, and I think David Hatcher was talking to the company last week, this would be the company that comes in, takes pictures from our garbage trucks on the side, and actually will be able, my understanding is, to send out notices of property maintenance, tarps, mailboxes via email. And that's just a great way and maybe a cheap way that we don't have to use labor to actually get our word out to some of these areas. So I think we're going to do a pilot program off of that, and David's is working on that as we speak. I think he met with them last week. So the next one I have is always solid waste. This time of year when things become dormant, we definitely see increase in litter and litter collection. So we will be using additional temporary labor as we can. Of course, we're in our leaf season of 2022. Weather is always a factor of our leaf season. You never know what the weather's going to do. You never know who's going to rake their yard, when they're going to rake their yard, and how much they're going to rake. Last weekend was a beautiful weekend. I even spent some time in my yard, as well as I've heard of a lot of others did too, and we're seeing that right now. But I will say that our staffing levels this year are at probably what I would consider as an all-time high. Up until yesterday, I think we had 3 positions left in the solid waste division, to include our CDL drivers. So we have lots of people to work. We are having some equipment issues and some equipment challenges this year that we're trying to work through and make sure that we get enough vehicles on the street each and every day to do our best. Those crews are working right now 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. And we'll probably do so at least till Christmas until we see this lighten back up. I haven't seen the tonnage reports yet, but I'm looking forward to that. The additional service we did this year is we took our hook lift with our 6 containers. And our 6 roll-off containers, we're actually moving them every week to a new location, sending notifications out, similar as we do to the Dominion tree trimming. We're sending them out to the neighborhoods. And those containers are available, so if somebody does not want to leave their leaves in front of their house, they're very capable. They can bag them, and they can bring them to our container locations, and they can put them in there, and it helps us a little bit. I will say, up to date, we've not had much success on that. We probably have less than 20 cubic yards, but we are moving them around, and we'll continue to do so, and hopefully that will catch on later on.
Is that just for leaves?
Right now, it is just for leaves.
And
We are working with
code.
We've got a skeleton in one, so from Halloween. We are working with code enforcement. When they do their neighborhood sweeps, we are putting a container out within the neighborhood. It's been successful of people just having a location very quickly to dump their stuff. Keeps our crews from picking it up off the street. One of the initiatives we are working on is the Welcome to Columbia signage. We've got a budget this year. We've put some goals to standardize the signage of primary, secondary, and smaller entrances. So hopefully we'll have some consistency. So we've got RFP specifications developed after today's meeting. Based on your feedback, we will get with our purchasing department and start sending them out to companies. What we're asking the companies to work with staff to seek input, provide a couple initial designs that we can share. We want to be able to make adjustments. We want to be able to look at the colors, the fonts, the dimensions, the heights of the letters, the material it's going to be made of, and make sure it's long-lasting. We will do a presentation on the final design and selections during a work session to council for your feedback. We will demonstrate the materials selected to make sure it's a minimal maintenance. And of course, we're going to want stamped engineered drawings for specifications, fabrications, lighting if we decide to do lighting, landscape, irrigation, or signs. One of the things when staff talked about it was providing some kind of uplighting to the signs. You know, everybody's now wanting to change the lights on something. We've actually got automatic bulbs in front of City Hall, so we can pretty much change these lights from anywhere. They're hooked to the Wi-Fi. So these will go out very soon. After today, the other thing we have, of course, is we continue to remove the sign litter around town, the brown signs that are, you know, consistently going away. And I know there's still some on Elmwood, Mayor. And there's still some on Bull Street, too, I'm sure.
I'm very excited about this. One thing I just wanted to note is, and I know we've talked about this, it's especially important for us to take a look at how these signs will be consistent with some of our previous signs, whether it's in partnership with Experience Columbia or some of the other branding that we already see around the city. So if we can incorporate that into our discussions with the final organization, I think that'll be important. And then, of course, doing preliminary research, you and I both know that kind of opening up to companies that we wouldn't traditionally think be able to do this, right? So more of our sign companies or creative companies, I think we can really get a lot of bang for our buck and get a lot of gateways taken care of that way as opposed to the more traditional construction approach.
I recently seen a sign, and I'm probably going to steal somebody's thunder, that was put out at Lake Murray that's a very attractive sign.
Mr. Duvall?
Mr. Mayor, while Robert's up here, I want to thank Robert and Sarah and Brian and Ann and all the others that participated in the Arbor Day celebration last Friday at Logan School. We planted 2 trees out there, one deodara cedar and a cypress. Bald cypress tree. There's 2 deodara cedars on that.
Did you plant the bald cypress?
No, I was the bald cypress. You are. There are already 2 deodara cedars on that property, and it looks real good. The Arbor Day is a requirement for Tree City, and we're getting ready to get about number 41 in Tree City. 44 in Tree City.
Which is the longest in the state, am I correct?
Yes, it's the oldest one in the state. It's not the first one in the state. The first one in the state was the town of Chirral, but they missed 1 year, so Columbia is now ahead of us as an award of Tree City, but we're right behind the city of Columbia. And while I have the microphone and talking about Public Works, I want to commend Veronica for her presentation last Thursday night at the South Kilburn Neighborhood Association. The reason Robert has gotten his employment up is because Veronica's out there at these neighborhood meetings talking about going down to Public Works and getting a job and how good these jobs would be. So I think that she has done a great job of spreading the word that public employment with Public Works is a great thing for the city of Columbia.
Thank you. And we're still hiring, by the way, so thank you.
Reverend McDowell
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Brennan.
Robert, I want to thank you for your report, of course. And we're looking at futuristic projections as it relates to beautification. Let me just look at it on the flip side. What have we done and what are we doing to maintain those areas, the areas that we already have? I mean, in terms of beautification.
Councilman, I think it's a great question, and I think with the additional funding, what we've seen from the city by
Would that be included?
Yeah, by contracting out the mowing areas, it will bring our people closer to town, and instead of running lawnmowers, we'll get to spend more time of weeding the beds and putting the mulch out and doing additional maintenance in town. We've grown so much that we just needed to add some people. And the contracts, we actually mowed Harbison recently. We mowed it down to 1.5 inches, I believe, just to see how it would look with the contractor. Got a very good cost, and we had a lot of contractors looking for business.
Yeah, while the futuristic projections are great, that maintenance part of those areas, of course, is just as equally important as it relates to beautification in this area. Thank you, Mr. Van.
Councilman Brennan?
Yeah, Robert, I think everybody noticed Hughie Street and Gervais Street, the medians getting some TLC that they deserve from not only our city staff, but I think Department of Corrections had some crews out there working that. From our conversations with the DOT, how do we continue the collaboration? And how do we, because, it'd be fantastic if we could treat every road like we did for that little time span at Hughie and Gervais. It makes a big difference.
So I breezed across the top of that, and I'll go back and discuss that a little bit, is the idea of doing Gervais Street and doing in front of the State House and down Gervais Street and Hughie Street, or Huger Street, whichever one, was to let everybody see what is going on. The idea that we had through the collaboration with the mayor and the highway commissioner and some of the individuals with DOT is to do the in front of the State House. Now the next part is more of a political deal, is we want the State House people to see how good our city can look and how people come in. And while 70% of the streets are owned and maintained by DOT, there's no reason we can't strike a partnership, but they need to come to the table with some funding that they don't have to actually do these projects. Mayor,
One of the things that we have to add to the legislative agenda is there's no O&M money for our roads. Everything is projected for the highway. So part of this was a collaboration between the SCDOT, the city, and the county, because we need the county portion as well, because all our entranceways are split. So, we want to future address all the entranceways and all of our secondary roads. And I think this was our first step, and working together to collaboratively go to our legislative delegation to get money set aside for maintenance for our streets, because there's
For
not
just
enough.
beautification or?
No, total maintenance, there is absolutely no money
No, I
scheduled
get
for
completely,
that.
yeah.
And so that's will be one of our lobbying efforts this year to address. Mr. Taylor and then Ms. Herbert.
Robert, let me just say thank you for what you guys are doing. It's really, really rewarding to see us really take, once again, pride in the way the city looks. I can remember when I was a kid riding down Trenholm Road and seeing that sign that said, "Welcome to Columbia, All-American City." I mean, and I see my friend James sitting there, and we've talked about this a lot. And the better we make things look, I think the more people take care of things, the lesser crime that we see, and so forth and so on. So I just want to tip my hat. I want to publicly say thank you to Bill Dukes, who's our resident highway commissioner, who I know has spent the time with the mayor and some private citizens as well to reinforce the importance of it. Two things. Going back to the solid waste for a second, we referred to a committee of ways that we might look at taking the Herbie-Kirby's off of our main city streets to the back of buildings and maybe substitute dumpsters and things like that. I want to make sure that that's still somewhere in the study and the dialogue. And then, is it worthwhile, we don't need to get into that debate today, but it is worthwhile for us to begin to look at some programs perhaps where people put their household garbage or trash on the street the day before pickup versus seeing mattresses and couches and things out on the street for a week. I know people get a little testy sometimes when you think about it, but as I was coming down Trenholm Road, it looked a little bit like a Sanford and Son commercial in front of some of those houses, and I just think that's something we ought to take a look at.
so the first answer is, I haven't reviewed the map yet about the downtown area and the 5 points and stuff. I hear it's ready. I need to review it. I did it 15 years ago and looked at it. I just need to look at, there's been so much development downtown, to see if anything's not been landlocked. It did work years ago. The household, we'll look at. We did look at it years ago, and that's a fun one, trust me.
But that's where this dumpster program could come into play too, is getting that and using that as well, because that would eliminate that being on the street as well. So the sooner we can go down both of those paths, I think it would be great. Ms. Herbert and
Well,
Mr.
Mr. Mayor,
Brennan.
I was just said one last thing. I was going to say, just on this inner city Herbie Kirby's for commercial deals, I mean, don't we have some restaurants and things that might have 7 or 8 or 10 of those green boxes that are picked up multiple days a week? And if we can look somehow to, whether it's credits to them and switching to dumpsters in the back with a private thing or something to get those off the street?
So we do, and there's a lot of areas that never had a location for a dumpster, or there was some that was not located for a dumpster. The reason we added some of the carts was for them to not put their garbage on the ground, at least it would be containerized. The one that really strikes my mind real quick that is closed right now is Starbucks in the Vista. There was absolutely no place for a dumpster whatsoever. And, you know, I know Missy Gentry's sitting here. We worked many times on Park Street before we got the garbage dump about using somebody else's dumpster. And that's all great until somebody spills something on the side and you have the dispute and you're back to step one. So it's something we can work on. It's just, you know, we have to look at each one individually.
Let me just say again, thank you for what you're doing. And I would remind the mayor and council members, the yellow he's picked out to paint the curbs happens to be the same color as the University of Missouri.
Oh, my goodness.
Which is where our man.
Thank you, sir.
So how about garnet and black curbs?
I hear you.
So Robert, help me, just for clarification, under sign removal and sign litter. Are you referring to, because we have a lot of businesses who have signs and believe that after a business is closed, these old signs need to be removed or the names need to go. But then we have these people who run for office and they put all these yard signs out and they don't come back to get their yard signs and they're there for weeks. Not any of us, I'm sure, but they're there for weeks and weeks and weeks, sometimes months. Do we have any particular policy on whether or not we'll pick them up or anything like that after a certain amount of time? Because we have tons of yard signs from June. Well, I have primary signs that are all throughout the neighborhoods.
So I can address the first part of this fairly simply, is we're looking at, there's a museum sign on Elmwood Avenue, and right after the museum, a brown museum sign that DOT put up, we have a wayfinding sign that shows the museum turning left. That's the signs we need to remove because they're just duplicates.
It's
And the
worse than
state's all
that.
for that.
There's 12 signs between 277 and downtown directing you to the museum.
Well, somebody like me might need all 12, but I can understand the duplication.
So political signs or signs in the right-of-way, signs in our beds, we do remove. During the
Krista.
election season, we do hold them. They come back and get them if they need to, put them back out. But then after that, I believe, Krista, I think that really falls under your wheelhouse, is they're supposed to be removed. Am I correct?
So do we remove them when folks don't do what they're supposed to do?
Yeah, code enforcement does.
Yeah.
Code or zoning, one of the two teams does.
In the right-of-way, we will remove them. If they're on private property, we will contact the property owner to do so.
And we're doing that now?
Well, we are now, Tina.
As of-
But I'm just saying.
Yes,
are-
ma'am.
Are we
Yes.
doing that now?
We have contacted property owners on that signage,
Okay.
so we can take a look. See.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Brennan?
Hey, Robert, one quick last question. Fantastic to hear the recruitment and retention for the employment levels that are so high. For the seasonal employment, do we have any plans to keep those seasonal employees on for other beautification scope? Anything that we've talked about?
So a lot of our seasonal employees do not have driver's licenses, and we do require driver's licenses, except for solid waste. They actually have 4 position that does not. But anybody that has a driver's license, We are looking to employ anybody and everybody we can. We're still using the express policy to where we can onboard people in 2 or 3 days. That has been a very big help for us about getting us back to normal. CDL drivers, we're getting applications in for CDL drivers every day. The problem with CDL drivers are it's working great for solid waste. It's working great for people that want to drive trucks. But the operator side of that is they don't want to get in the ditch and they don't want to scoop anything.
Right.
They just want to drive trucks.
Understood, but you don't need a
So-
driver's license to be a part of the landscaping team to run a
Correct.
weed eater on medians in our major thoroughfares, right?
Right.
Okay, is there funding to keep those seasonal employees on year-round?
As they get in and work into our full-time budget, yes. But we do, as Public Works, budget quite a bit of money for seasonal labor.
Perfect, thanks, Robert.
That brings us to,
That brings us to one of our big initiatives that I think our city manager said, first and foremost, it's been a long time coming. And I think the long time coming is anytime you put, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but anytime you put as many municipalities and as many governments as we have together and the document we have to make sure that every government can agree on this document is a big deal. The one thing I do want to point out, and before I introduce the individuals, is that this project is based on, not within the city, it's based on just areas that of traffic and based on needs. And I think some of it came out from March Madness back when they had the football game here, or the basketball games here, is everybody that came in town that flew into Columbia had to drive down 302. And it's great to drive out of the airport, but when you get to 302, that drive to the interstate is a tough drive. So this derived from that. So every municipality that's working on this and every county is putting in money for the maintenance side of this based on population. The first two sides of our population's about $25,000. We may have to adjust that number for inflation. But like I said, I got involved quite a while ago, and it's been great to see this project come hopefully to a head and get done. Two people I'd like to introduce. The first one is our current chair of the Midlands Business Leadership Group, and that's Lee Bustles. And then the former chair, who I work with probably most of the time, that's going to give the update today.
it's reverse.
Lee's the chairman, right?
No, he's the former chair.
James Bennett.
James has the crown now.
I've worked with James about as long as anybody, okay? So, so long, I guess I've got it all confused. But I'm going to let James update you on our progress.
Okay, to members of council, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I represent the Midlands Business Leadership Group. I am the current chair of MBLG. I used to be the chair of Governmental Cooperation, which is now Lee Bustle. And we also have with us Ashton Pearson, who is our executive director of the MBLG. But I want to first thank our city manager, Teresa Wilson, and Robert for their continued support of this initiative. This was a pre-COVID initiative, and so we continue to work. And as Robert mentioned, it's like herding cats. But we've been told that during our history, it's the first time that we know of where City of Columbia, Richland County, Lexington County, Town of Lexington, West Columbia, Springdale, Irmo, Forest Acres, that they've come together in a collaborative effort, not just for the gateways, but for this region. And if our region is to continue to compete with the Greenville and Charleston, it's going to take collaboration. And so it has taken us this long to get through the process, but we wanted to make sure that we were doing it right. We involved COG, who has been working on this IGA agreement over the years. We had to go back and tweak on behalf of the city of Columbia to make sure that we had taken out the unincorporated areas, and we had to tweak on behalf of Richland County. Now, Richland County is the only governmental entity to date that has approved, the IGA. Hopefully, before you finish today, that the city of Columbia will approve the COG, and then I think we're close to Lexington County for the approval. But when you get to the smaller entities like Forest Acres, Irmo, Springdale, West Columbia, and Casey, they have their own MOU that protects them. Because a lot of those entities want to pay all the money up front and not tax on an ongoing basis. Now, one thing I'll say about the MBLG, they put the money where their mouth is. We are taking on the responsibility of raising the dollars for implementation of the 8 gateways. The total project is a little over $2 million. The first 2 projects is, as Robert mentioned, it's I-26 and 302, which is the airport corridor. And then the second immediate implementation would be I-77 and Forest Drive. Because of the extensive need at the airport, those 2 gateways around $1.2 million. And so the business community has already raised those funds, and we will continue to raise the funds for the other 6. What the IGA asked individual governmental bodies to do is to provide the ongoing maintenance. And as Robert mentioned, it's based on a pro rata share based on the population, but Richland County, Lexington County, and then the city of Columbia will have the pro rata commitment to those gateways. Now, the other 6 gateways, if you can imagine, I-20 and US 1, I-20 and 26, where they merge, I-26 in Harbison, and that's the exit that is in the city of Columbia also, I-20 and 277, I-20 and I-77, and then I-77 and 26. And so, although we explain to the governmental bodies it's not a gateway per governmental entity, this is a regional approach. But I think after you heard where the gateways are located, by and large, majority of those are in the city of Columbia. And again, we are here in support of what you're doing for beautification because we think it is so important. I noticed that your existing identification of gateways involves signage. Ours is pretty much just the landscaping, but signage is very much welcome in those gateways. It's just, it was kind of cost prohibitive from the, to create signage on all 8, but individual governmental bodies or municipalities are free to add the signage to the gateways. But what's so great about this is that once you enter into the Midlands, you know that you're into the region because of the consistency in the landscaping. And so that is what sets this project apart. And after meeting with Mr. Taylor and Dr. Bustles, I think when we look at the gateways that y'all have identified in the city, they overlap pretty good. And I think y'all have chosen one that we didn't have, but I think it's a great gateway. I think that's Elmwood and I-26. That's a great one. But by and large, our gateways are within 10 miles from the State House, and that's how they came up, with the 8 there. Mr. Mayor, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Bennett? Yes, Dr. Bustles.
Great to see that this is all coming together and excited to hopefully have the regional cooperation happen quickly and efficiently. What is the timeline for breaking ground for the first gateway that you all have identified by the airport?
Yeah. So we are hopeful that this spring, that we will be breaking ground for 302 and Forest Drive. With the help of the city, we were able to put the pre-emergent down this fall to cut back on the growth and the weeds. We are now preparing to go forward with an RFP that hopefully by January or early February, we would have identified the contractor, the landscaping, in hopes to start the planting early spring or mid-spring.
Mr. Taylor, please ask if you want a motion to move forward with this and approve it.
I think we've already approved this, haven't
No, he just,
we? We've already approved this.
it's not what James said earlier. He said only Richland County had approved it.
Yeah, we'll approve it today on our, it's in our agenda.
Okay.
It's on your agenda for today.
Perfect.
Mr. Bennett, thank you very much for your hard work. Being part of that committee, yeah, I thought COVID was going to kill this like
Yeah.
it killed a lot of other things, but
That's right.
Miracle Grow kept it going, and we appreciate it. Thank you all for your commitment to help raise the money. I think this is going to be a great thing. I think with the added signage and the cleanup and all the things coming together, the efforts with DOT and Richland County working together along with Lexington County to improve our gateways, to make our community abiding. We are the capital city region, and we need to look like it.
Good, and thank all of y'all, and thank you for what you do every day to continue to make our city great.
Well, and Mr. Bennett, let me just say how good it is to see the business leadership of Columbia in the council chambers. I mean,
Good to be here.
I mean, you were kind enough to serve as a member of the Tax Modernization Committee, and your personal involvement to make our city a better place is truly appreciated.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank y'all.
Thank you, sir.
At this time, we will move to our final presentation, item number 5, the Capital City Lake Murray Country Update. Ms. Miriam Atria, President and CEO for the Capital City Lake Murray Country Regional Tourism Board.
And I also brought along Vicki Davis, our Vice President of Special Events and Funding. Good evening. Capital City Lake Murray Country continues to break records. Now heading into our 42nd year in business, we just hosted 25 nations to the Columbia Canal Riverfront Park and Lake Murray in the region on October 16th. And we spread the business all across the 4-county region we promote. With the 16th World Black Bass Championship, first time ever on United States soil. Many of our international visitors stayed over 3 weeks. Vicki was told day one, we only have 16 nations interested. And then the magic happened, and we had 25 nations visit. We have included in your packet this evening the television coverage schedule, which does not show all of the social media videos and exposure that will be planned across the United States and world. We have an audience alone from the top bass fishermen, Scott Martin and Jacob Wheeler, who are on the U.S. bass team who we sponsor every year. They have produced major video coverage of this event. And just FYI, we are submitting this event for a statewide Tourism Economic Impact Award. We, as of today, are currently working on and confirming a bid and contract to secure the Colonial Life Arena for 3 years, for an event to feature 350-plus chefs from across the world. We are trying to lure this business from Dallas, Texas, to Columbia, South Carolina. This is a result of national press received and our organization's efforts in the recent final table, which was hosted in Columbia in April of 2022. And we've been in discussions with Mayor Rickerman regarding this business and the impact. Also, in the month of October, we hosted the Southeastern State Park directors and staff from 14 states. And they toured the entire region and dined heavily in the city of Columbia. We made sure of that. They enjoyed our hospitality, and we actually blew them out of the water. They could not go to Congaree National Park. We brought Congaree National Park to them in a hotel conference room. 360-degree view in video, experiencing kayaking down the rivers, hiking, biking, and the scenic beauty of Congaree National Park. We have dropped off for you this evening our annual report. We present our annual report differently because we are charged with promoting a four-county region. And this is a very large geographical area. And talk about working regionally, we do. And we hope that all the members of council will really take to heart the information we're sharing with you and give us a call if we need to explain any of that information. We're here tonight also to present our visitor guide, which highlights a lot of information that is shared all across the United States and now all over the world. Our organization, do you realize, is bringing the potential of 2 world events to this region. The strong first staff of 5. We're very proud of our record. But tonight we want to share with you our 60-second version of our television ad. And when I say our television ad, this ad literally does run across the world. We're charged by our State House to promote 4 counties. Some of our counties have more population, more dollars than others. But we can't do our job without the support of this council, and we thank you for any and all support through the various tourism funds. And we want you to know, loud and clear, we're putting skin in the game for tourism and economic development each and every day, and even more days and more nights than days. So this time we would like to share with you the 60-second version of our television ad, and we feel you'll agree at the end of the day, it shows our visitors there is so much to do in this 4-county region. And in Capital City, Lake Murray Country region, we make you come alive. We have so much to offer. Play the video, please. Can you turn it up? was kind of perfect timing tonight that we're here, and there was a lot of discussion about beautification. I hope all of you have had the opportunity to see our new destination landmark that we just unveiled at Highway 6 and 60. This is the first part of an extensive project that we've been working on for years as well. We raised $100,000 in the community to make that portion that is now in existence happen. That is not the end of the game. In the spring, we too will be doing some beautiful landscaping. We're working with Stuart Mungo and some other community-minded, interested citizens to bring to fruition the beautification of the Lake Murray Dam. It is an iconic welcome to Lake Murray, and we appreciate once again this time this evening, your support. Look forward to bringing a lot of business to Columbia, South Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Duvall.
Mayor, I'm always amazed at the amount of tourism you bring to the Midlands area, especially the international and national events like the chef. It wasn't called the chef's table, but
The final table.
final table. I knew it was the final table.
But we want the big boys. We want the World Food Champions.
And the long-lasting events, the events that last weeks here in Columbia, it's a real added to the economy of our Midlands region, and I appreciate what Lake Murray Country does and hope we can continue to be good partners with you.
And then I haven't forgotten what Vicky's currently working on. In April, Bassmasters arrives.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for being here. Good to see you. Madam City Manager?
Yes, sir. At this time, we will take up the consent agenda items 6 through 25. Mayor and council.
Is there a motion?
So move, Mr. Mayor.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions, or concerns? Mr. Taylor? Mr. Taylor, can you in your mic? Thank you.
Just would like for it to be noted in the minutes that for items 12 and 25, we just have requested future, not a date specific, just a presentation in the future work session.
Yes, sir.
That's 12 and
25. Duly noted. We had a motion and a second. Any other questions or concerns at this time? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles? Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
We do have 2 second reading items that are zoning and planning matters. The first is item 26, an amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance for non-conforming sites. The first reading approval was given on November the 15th, 2022.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, or concerns? This will be the second reading. Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Mr. Taylor?
No.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 27, a zoning planning matter for first reading is an annexation, the interim future land use map amendment and interim zoning map amendment for 3800 Overbrook Drive and 616 Super Street.
Good evening, City Council. So this is not actually a zoning public hearing item. These are annexations first reading and an interim zoning amendment. You will see the public hearing for the confirmation of the zoning at a later date. However, we do know that there is interest in this annexation before you, but this is a donut hole that has been a priority area for City Council to annex for a number of years. It is coming in from the county with a high-density zoning classification. You are looking to apply an interim zoning of a medium-density residential zoning classification in this area. It is in the Rosewood community.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. So, Krista, so what we're voting on today is an interest and not the actual ordinance itself?
No, it is an ordinance, and it's an annexation ordinance. So you have two methods by which you annex property. One is an annexation with an interim zoning, which this is, and then at times you have an annexation with the actual zoning.
Which will come
application.
later.
Yes, sir.
All right.
So what, next steps, and at what points does the public have input in that process?
Well, the public can have input into your annexation. State law, though, really provides only city council with that authority. It doesn't even provide planning commission any advisory capacity with regard to annexation. It's solely within your purview. The zoning is within planning commission to advise you. So the next steps would be to bring the zoning map amendment in the public hearing to you. If there are any development proposals for this site that require planning commission review, which we understand there will be, that will require that planning commission review at a later date as well.
And those plans that are reviewed at Planning Commission, are those the final designs, or can the developer stray with design after that Planning Commission approval?
There's a small amount of latitude. Generally speaking, if it's less intense than what was proposed to Planning Commission, that can be reviewed at a staff level. If you have more intensity, then that would be required to go back to the Planning Commission. I also like to remind people, too, that the Planning Commission review is largely administrative. It's not necessarily a discretionary review. They were reviewing what are the regulations and whether or not it meets it. So I do like to remind everyone of that.
Can we ask questions about this, though?
Yes.
Like,
Well,
for example,
we-
if we're this is a motion to annex.
Yes, sir.
Would we be annexing in at a different zoning that is currently annexed at currently at the county, or are we changing the zoning when we annex it in?
So while our zoning classifications are not identical, it's as similar, if not actually a little bit less intense. This is their high-density residential.
So it's zoned higher density in the county. We're basically bringing it at the same or a little bit less.
It's about the same,
Okay,
yes.
that's
The
what I-
density is about the same.
So we had several people sign up. Obviously, you're here. We'd like to hear from you. And Whitney Denton was the first person to sign up. Ms. Denton, well, they've signed up. I'll allow them to speak.
Good evening, council. Thank you for allowing us to comment this evening. I'm here not only for myself, but for the South Kilbourne Neighborhood Association. We very much do agree with annexation of the donut holes because we do understand the challenges that they present. But I do have some issues with the permanent designation request in the annexation request that went to planning for the urban core residential, which under that states that we have wide streets, parking is often on the streets. So the building developer has a little bit more leeway. Under this designation, it has very little setback to adjacent properties. It does have them facing the road, which the design Mr. Bowers presented to us in October had 4 buildings all facing a middle parking lot. We tried to do a parking space count. We could not even count out 2 spaces per unit. So the roads surrounding this are not wide. They are actually very narrow. The houses that butt up against this on Suber Street, if they have a car parked in front on their side, there will not be another one allowed on the opposite side. If a fire truck needs to come through, it's going to have to take out somebody's cars parked on the road. Same with an ambulance. We have narrow roads. The neighbors surrounding South Kilbourne Road right now will tell you how miserable it has been for the past several weeks because they're now experiencing increased traffic. The Rosewood 25-year plan 11 years ago has stressed traffic concerns. We had a pedestrian struck on South Kilbourne next to the Montgomery build they did a few years back. We're also stressing that in addition to traffic being out of control, speeds, traffic safety study, we're asking please to consider not 31. I actually support you holding water taps hostage for annexation, and I think you should reduce the number required for that to more like 10, not 25. That's how much I do support annexation, but I cannot support this project as it has been submitted to the neighborhood. And not to mention 2 water main breaks in 3 days. Actually, one was on a Thursday, we reported the second in front of 3800 Overbrook. On Friday, it was not repaired until the following Tuesday. So we have active leaks, another reported today. We are not handling the residences in our neighborhood, and these water lines are phase 3 of the improvement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Denton.
So right now, again, we're just voting on whether or not we want to annex this into the city. There's going to be other steps along the way to look at design and zoning and some of those other factors, correct? Okay.
That's my understanding. I prefer staff to answer that because I think that's the clarification, is that we're just talking about annexation, no design or anything else at this point.
Correct, yeah, you aren't reviewing the project at this time, although you are looking at the interim zoning classification, but you'll have another opportunity for the actual.
Mr. Robert Duckett, is that correct? Did I say that correctly? Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I've lived with my wife at 3850 Overbrook Drive for the last 36 years. We purchased a house not long after graduating from law school here at University of South Carolina, and I'm an attorney in town. I do hope you'll do a visit of this area because the water problems, as you've already been told, are very bad. We live about a half a block from the corner here at 3850, and there's been water problems, water literally running down the street from the top here at 3800 Overbrook by our house and others. My neighbors are, I just turned 65 years old. My neighbors have been there longer than I have. Some other neighbors that are here today that you'll hear from. And we all have problems with this. The traffic, and I hope you do visit this, the traffic, we have South Kilbourne here. Rosewood goes into a little cut-through street called Suber, and the traffic is already very bad there. I cannot imagine, and I'm not overstating our case, putting in another 31 units, call them apartments, call them townhouses, call them what you like, on this corner. I go to work about 7 o'clock every morning, and the traffic is already bad. There's school children standing along South Kilbourne waiting on their school buses. It's already bad. Again, not overstating my case, trying to take a left turn from South Kilbourne onto Rosewood Drive. And if you approve this in the form that it's in, it is literally going to be a danger for school children and for others. And there have been accidents, and at least one person I know of hit. Also, Representative Taylor, earlier in the presentation, you had mentioned Herbie Kirby's and the roll carts in a totally another different context, but we're already looking at dumpster problems here, or, another 31 roll carts, Herbie Kirby's, call them what you want, or 62 when you're counting recycling, and it's already a mess in that neighborhood. So there are very, very big problems with this project as proposed, and it would be a danger to the community. And I hope you will do a jury view and go look at this now. You're not going to get a true sense of it. I see I'm out of time, but because the road's closed off on South Kilbourne with all these water problems, but I think you'd get an idea of how much damage this would cause to our community. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Mr. Mayor, I think we need to take a second to clarify again, just for what it's worth, because I do appreciate the interest that everybody has, but what we're dealing with tonight is really whether we annex it into the city or not. None of us have seen any development plans whatsoever. And I would say to you, from some of the problems you're having, when you're speaking, the question is, do you want us to annex or not? And I hear you loud and clear on what you're saying, and frankly, people shouldn't have to go through lots of those things, and I think if we annex you in, which is at the current, it doesn't change, I think what our
Every issue
the
that
zoning
bring
folks
it up
said,
is-
it doesn't change the zoning that's there now, it actually makes it a little bit less, but it gives us an ability as city council, which we don't have today, to address the issues that you're talking about down. So really, the question tonight is simply, we want to be part of the city or remain part of the county. I want to make it clear, I do think we can help you a little bit more on these inner city things, you know, if we move forward with the annexation. Any project things, I think you heard Miss Krista say just a little while ago, the project stuff will come. We really just have not. I don't want you to think we've seen the things that you're talking about, because we haven't seen that yet. But I think as part of the city, all of us here would be here to help you on these issues. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
The last person for that issue, Ms. Kittle.
Thank you so much for all your efforts and all the people that you listen to. I know that there's a very good chance that every decision is difficult because you have to balance. You know, we need more money to come in to do all these wonderful things that you all have talked about today. And to answer your question, you know, I think we're kind of split. Some people who only have dirt driveways are concerned that an annexation coming in that, you know, now that they're up in age, they're going to be required to bring, you know, their yards up to the standards that you all hold really very high, right? So there is concerns about that, but there is definitely a benefit because code enforcement is something that I would love to see on Overbrook. And just to throw in a plus, your code enforcement officer is awesome. He has an incredible relationship with the residents. So if that's what you're looking for, then that's what the outlying areas are already seeing. But I only have one voice, and I know there are many that were still at work that couldn't come because they want to raise the concerns that you've heard here. So as the guardians of the beautification, not just where tourists get to come and just drop in, drop some money and leave, we're asking that you will take note of the red flags that we are raising, that we are saying, please be the public servants to the people that are already here, that have already invested their lives. It's not just a bunch of senior citizens who don't want to see some change. I almost audibly laughed when you talked about Trenham Road, because if you think that is bad, come to Overbrook. We also understand that there's a need for more housing because of our college students. Overbrook already has borne the burden for so many multi-family rental units that are around there, and don't have a problem with the product, but 31 units that they've said is $250,000 plus, they've got 6 3-bedrooms, which I assume would be higher. So he's going to walk away with $8 million, less all his expenses, but the city of Columbia and the South Kilburn neighborhood are going to be left to handle the fallout from the mess that this is going to make. When we went to a neighborhood meeting where the representative was there, I asked about traffic studies, impact studies on Gills Creek, and he said, we're not going to be required to do that. And I said, well, do you want to just suck all the lifeblood out of this community and walk away, or do you want to be part of the community? And he said, studies cost money. So, red flag, please watch out for us and, whomever the next step is, because this is your legacy, right? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, as As we stated earlier, this is about the annexation and a lot of the issues you brought forth and some of the emails we got, we appreciate. We're not at that step yet. But currently, everything you've addressed are issues that are ongoing now and don't change because someone could take it and not annex it and do exactly everything we talked about. I think Mr. Taylor's point is by annexing it now, having an opportunity to work together to create a good product that benefits all the community, code enforcement, all the things. Obviously, we're working through phases. I know that the neighborhood is very, very much in tune to what's going on with water and the phases and where we are in the long-term Rosewood projects. So we appreciate that, and thank y'all for being here tonight. I'm sorry that we didn't have an opportunity to speak earlier. I think there was a miss about this being a first reading from the sense of a public hearing, and so we thought you were going to speak there, but I wanted to make sure that your voices were heard while you were here this evening. So thank you for being here.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
this is a good time. They have given us a heads up that this is in the pipeline for Plant and Columbia Water for us to take a look at how not just this development is going to impact the time frame between now and Phase 3. There are two major water issues currently. If I request that we take a look at that area, and if there's any impact of near-term projects that can be done in unison with a potential development in that area. I think that's important and something that you need to look at. Motion to approve.
Second. Motion, there's a second.
Second.
Comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Just information, just so our friends here know. This is a first reading. It takes two readings to approve annexation. So after we do the next reading, it will come under our code department and things like that. We'll be able to call Mr. Hatcher's group. One more reading so you can.
Madam City Manager?
Item 28 is another annexation and interim future land use map amendment and interim zoning map amendment for 1921 Pineview Drive.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Moving into a period of resolutions, item 29 is resolution number R 2022-094, authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement relating to a regional gateways project between Richland County, Lexington County, the city of Columbia, and Central
moved.
Midlands.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any questions or concerns?
Mr. Mayor, could we make, with the motioner or motion maker, consent to amending their motion that we name Councilperson Bustles as our designated elected official to the Project Strategy Advisory Committee, Project Steering Advisory Committee?
I don't have an issue. I mean, that was part of what the committee we were on, and there's obviously an open space there, so that shouldn't be an issue. Any concerns?
May I?
My only question, I'm sorry, Ed,
Go
is
ahead.
the COG, Central Midlands COG is project manager on this. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Which has city appointees. I'm all for if we want to make Dr. Bustles an appointee as an outside project management participant. That's fine with me, but I just wanted to make that point.
Technically, I believe she would be on the MLBG Regional Committee, not the COG Committee.
Perfect.
Yeah, it says it's each elected official, each municipality appoints an elected official to that project steering committee. There's a lot of other, by the way, there's a lot of other appointments of staff and things like that. I think there's 4 or 5 in here.
I just didn't want to confuse the fact with the COG.
No, that's a good clarification. So we have a motion with amendment. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 30, resolution number R 2022-097. The City of Columbia adopts the following resolution in support of requesting the South Carolina Legislature to enact a statute to require security cameras at the entrances and exits of nursing homes.
Second.
Wilson, will you let the record show that I have abstained from discussion on this particular one due to a possible conflict of interest?
Yes, sir.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
So a motion and a second. Mr. Taylor is abstained, or the conflict will get him a form. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Ms. Herbert? Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Item 31, resolution number R 2022-098, authorizing the city manager and fire chief to execute mutual aid agreement for fire protection between McIntyre Joint National Guard Base and the City of Columbia.
Motion to approve?
Got a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions, concerns, comments? Hearing none, seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving into a period of ordinances first reading, I would ask that our Planning and Development Services Director, Ms. Hampton, come forward along with Fire Chief Jenkins, just to give an overview quickly of ordinances, first reading items 32 through 39.
Will we have the opportunity to approve these as one, or we have to do them
I think we're going to get a motion for that.
Okay, perfect.
This is a code cycle that we regularly have to update based on the South Carolina LLR, and I'm going to take this opportunity to turn it over to our building official, Todd Byers, who I don't know that you've been introduced to, and our Development Center Administrator, Brandon Burnett, who assisted me with putting these together, put them together, actually. So, Todd, if you will give a highlight. Thank you.
Mayor Rickaman, members of council, good evening. International Code Council mandates all of our building codes. Our building codes start out with ICC, which is International Code Council. It then is handed down to each state. Each state then has the opportunity to go through the codes and make them their own. Through modifications, through ramifications of that international code, you then have the South Carolina modifications. Once the South Carolina Building Code Council gets finished with them, they then go over to the State House. The State House, they're then approved and become ordinances within the state. So what we are required to do as a municipality jurisdiction is to adopt those codes, both the International Building Code and all its related codes, which would be the mechanical, plumbing, international fuel gas, as well as NEC, National Electric Code, along with property maintenance, the International Residential Code, and the International Fire Code. All of those are mandated from the state for us to adopt. We actually adopt those with the South Carolina modifications. About 1/4 of the actual code changes go through the modifications that make it South Carolina. For our builders, HBA gets involved, the Home Builders Association gets involved with the residential side. Local contractors get involved with the Code Council on the commercial side of those. Any questions on those?
One more explanation.
sir.
We are allowed to not adopt Administrative Section Chapter 1 because that interferes with the proper governance of the city by the city manager, city mayor, and administrators.
Yes, sir, that is correct. All the administrative side is taken out. We do not adopt those. That is done by jurisdiction so that the City of Columbia employment goes through the hiring and firing of the building official and all those. Yes, sir.
Just having been through this, not at a city level, but national, are there any things that's going to be, that we're going to hear back on this? Ms. Hampton did a good job with the memo, but whether it's sprinklers somewhere that they didn't have to be there before, is there something that's going to come up, or are we early passing this as a municipality, or are we late? I mean, in other words, has it already been filtered out in some other places? Because
Yes, sir, it's already gone through the South Carolina Building Code Council, so like the residential sprinklers is the biggest example that comes up. Inside the International Residential Code, residential homes have to be sprinkled. The South Carolina Building Code Council then goes in and says, no, they don't. So that modification, all those modifications have already been approved and take effect January 1st. So they've gone through all those sections. Yes,
I do
sir.
have one last question, really directed more to Ms. Hampton. Is this a blanket approval of container housing? Or does it have to meet certain zoning guidelines throughout the city?
I'll go ahead and answer that. So it's still, anything within the building code still has to meet our zoning ordinance as well. But it does at least now acknowledge some of those items.
Any other questions or concerns? Container home, yeah.
There's now an entire section on container homes for both residential and commercial occupancy.
Which is now becoming a bigger trend, as we all know,
Yes, sir.
in a lot of places. So, any other questions, concerns? I know Ms. Hampton laid it out pretty hard. I think Mr. Duvall's going to provide us a motion to do a
Appreciate the
clean
memo.
sweep of items 32 through 39.
That's exactly right, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion, we approve items 32 through 39 together as one motion, a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions or concerns? Hearing none. Thank you, Ms. Hampton. Thank you all for being here and the preparation prior to. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Herbert? Aye. Dr. Bustles? Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell? Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye. Jeff, that brings us to a point of committee reports, referrals, and new business.
Sir, item 40, Public Safety Committee Report for November 15th, 2022. The Honorable Howard E. Duvall, Jr.
Mr. Mayor, the Public Safety Committee report is attached to your agenda. It's a detailed report of our discussions of the public safety meeting. The one thing that we referred to council was the safety cameras at nursing homes, which we approved tonight as a resolution in support of a local comrade who had a mother that wandered away from a nursing home. So I would give the written report as my report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Duvall.
Item number 41, Technology Committee Report for November 15th, 2022. Honorable Tina N. Herbert.
Thank you. And there is also a detailed report of the minutes from our Technology Committee meeting. I do want to highlight a few things that I thought were, that would be important and for the goodwill of all of council. First of all, we expect to do a soft go live with EnerGov business license upgrade on December 5th. We wrote this before. So hopefully they did that on December 5th to allow businesses to pay their renewals and licenses online. And we've been working hard trying to get that electronic. The other thing that we realized, when we're getting calls and people are going to council people and asking, when they say they can't reach folks and they call us, what we realized is the biggest missing link is that we're not knowing when something is done. You know, when is the project done so that we can report to people. So before we get new software, we want to make sure that we're really utilizing the software that we have. Right, Ms. Moore? So right now we have GovQA, which I had to admit I have never used. And so we're going to do a training hopefully in February for city council folks to see if we fully utilize some of the things that we have already, if that will help us kind of close that gap. And I think those were the highlights from the meeting.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add one more highlight from the meeting.
Okay.
At least it was a highlight for me. After 7 years of trying, we finally have got a backup system for our data that is dispersed across the United States in 2 different places and gives us a disaster recovery capability that's been unmatched in the 7 years that I've been on council. And I feel safer at night when those 757s come over our building at low level, that if they fall into that building, we can operate from wherever. So I appreciate the safety I feel with our data backed up.
Thank you very much for that highlight, Mr. Duvall. Thank you, Ms. Herbert. At this point, Madam City Manager, we're at public input, and we have...
Mr. Mayor, just a point of personal privilege.
Absolutely, Reverend McDowell.
Just like the report that the Administrative Policy Committee did meet, we did have our meeting last month, I believe. Our discussions centered around boards and commissions. We are in conversation. We are still talking and have not and will plan to bring a report at a later date to our council.
All right. Are we talking about January? Can we kind of get this wrapped up and finished up sooner than later?
Probably, yes, sir.
Okay. I hate to have to get you over here on Christmas Eve to get this done.
And I'd hate to have to come.
Mr. McDowell, I might add to that, because it was a good meeting that we had.
Yes, sir.
And I think the plan would be to bring an updated version of the Boards and Commission Handbook back in January for a review.
That's wonderful.
Of council.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I would also like to announce that the Short-Term Rentals Committee will meet at 4 o'clock on September the 14th.
September.
Excuse me, December.
March?
Thank you.
December
Thank you,
the
Howard.
14th. And we have been in negotiations with both the neighborhoods and the industry, and I think we're getting very close to coming out with a product that will be dissatisfying to both, which means it'll probably be right.
Thank you very much for that update. With that, I'm going to move into, if anybody have any other points of personal privilege, comments, questions they want to add at this point? Not, I'd like to ask, Mr. Carroll, did you want to still speak? You're good? All right, thank you. I have Ms. Harris. Please come on up. How you doing, Ms. Harris?
Great. I'm a first timer, so.
Well, you not a first timer. You know, first time maybe speaking, but you have been around.
Absolutely. So this is more of an announcement than anything. So I am Kalita Harris, the director of the No Address documentary series, and I want to invite you all and everyone in the room to a screening that I'm having at Spotlight Theater this Friday at 7 p.m. It's part 2 of the documentary series that features Atlanta. And it talks about the criminalization of homelessness as well as practical solutions that we can all start implementing. So I know we are moving forward with some solutions, but I would like to implement more and show you all more that we can do on a permanent basis to end homelessness. So if you all have not seen part 1, which features Columbia, our city, you can go to our website, noaddressdocumentary.com, and you can view it there. So we have a great panel from Atlanta and Columbia, and I just want you all to be a part of it, and let's have a conversation and create some real change. And I do, Mr. Mayor, would like to follow up with our conversation about city-owned property and possibly putting that with my foundation, nonprofit foundation. So thank you all, and I hope to see you all there.
Can you give us that website?
Yes, noaddressdocumentary.com.
What?
Documentary. No address.
Documentary.
Documentary.com.
And what time is the event?
7 p.m.
Okay.
Will there be another screening?
Not here. I'm on tour right now, so I'm.
Will you then load it up so that those of us who can't make Friday night have an opportunity to see part 2?
Absolutely. It's on the website as well.
It is already?
Yes.
Okay,
But
great.
we're doing more of an, intimate screening, and that's behind Columbia Mall, if you
Yeah.
all don't know where that is. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Demetra McNeil?
Hello, greetings, salutations, everyone. This is also my first time speaking.
Well, welcome.
Thank you very much. My name is Demetria McNeil. I'm actually a native of Charleston, South Carolina, but I attended college at Benedict College, graduated 2018. I am the president and the founder of a nonprofit organization called the Poor Rich Kids, and I founded this organization at the tip of the pandemic, January 28th, 2020. I had a vision to bring together creatives that's within the 20 to 30-year-old range of age. All of us are creatives and upcoming entrepreneurs or already within our entrepreneurship career. We want to work together and be today's leaders and role models within our community by putting up creative events for both the youth and also for adults between the Low Country area, mainly either Columbia and also Charleston, where like my members were evenly split between Columbia and Charleston. We create creative events such as performances for the arts community, and it's very, how can I say, it's not limited to just one or two different art figures. We have dancers, we have artists that draw and paint, we have singers, poets. Those of us are inspiring to be entrepreneurs, and we also have a youth mentorship program that we started in with the school systems in Charleston, South Carolina, and we like to bring that here to Columbia to focus on children who are often overlooked, teaching them confidence building, teaching them how to express themselves through arts and how to become more self-efficient and within their arts, how to start a business within the crafts and the gifts that you already have. So we have our third gala that's happening March 4th here in Columbia. We partner with CMFA on 914 Pulaski Street. This gala, we introduce who our members are within our organization. We offer opportunities for vendors, those who own their own businesses, to be vendors and expose and showcase their brand and their businesses. We also allow our platform to be a platform for those who showcase their gifts. So either you sing, you do poetry, you dance, whatever you do, we like to open up the platform for those to show that we have a lot of people that's within the art community, but it's kind of fearful to speak up or to just do more, and we know that the arts is a need and is also helpful in different ways for both the youth and, well, all ages really. So I just wanted to come here today and give a light introduction. Next time I come back, I'll have a presentation of things we've done so far within the community. It's very diverse of the things that we do, from protests. We help with the Million Man March. We've performed at different events. We just did an interview with Soda City Live, and we just did a networking event November 19th here, and it was for the adult community. Just trying to bring our community together in different ways, but be creative about it. And we just want to get the word out of who we are and need help with funding so we can be able to put on a lot bigger and more impactful events for the city and our community.
Probably get with our staff and go through there's different channels for application processes, for funding opportunities, for events, hospitalities, if you're bringing people in. So all of that is due in March. So I would suggest you look at our website or get with our staff and get the information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
And may I also, who do I contact then about?
We'll get you set right behind you. Somebody will get your information and get you set all.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, just one question, because I
Yes.
didn't hear you well. What is your name and the name of the organization?
My name is Demetria McNeil, and the name of my organization is the Poor Rich Kids.
The
That-
Poor Rich Kids.
Yes, it's actually one word, Poor Rich Kids with 2 Z's. That's the name of all of our social media platforms where you can find us, and also our website, www.poorrichkids.com.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a good evening.
Thank you, ma'am. I do have somebody else who signed up. I can't read the signature, but it says the address is 1230 Main Street. That's somebody who signed up to speak, or somebody who just signed up. They thought it was a sign-up sheet. Not seeing anybody, I'll take that as that was a mistake. So with that, Mr. Duval, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we go into executive session for discussion of negotiations incident to proposed contractual arrangements pursuant to SC Code 30-4-78-2, Belvedere Home Assistant Program, discussion of the city's CDBG Disaster Recovery Program, incident to the proposed contractual arrangement pursuant to SC Code 30-4-78-2.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll, please?
Mr. Taylor? Ms. Herbert?
Aye.
Dr. Bustles?
Aye.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mayor Rickaman?
Aye. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.